Now, coming to another type of service within Kubernetes is Kubernetes Jobs and Cron Jobs. So what they really mean, as it suggests, it's a kind of repeat work you need to do on a constant basis. So for example, you have certain set of jobs you need to run, right? Which essentially like deployment creates the pod, job also creates pods. So by creating a job, you basically will be creating a pod through the pod template. Okay, so that's the way to go. So when you define a job, it creates one or more pods, and then it continue to retry the pod execution until certain number of them terminate successfully. So you basically have multiple jobs running, and then you can also see the status of the job, right? And it keeps track of successfully completed pod, and then once the job is completed, right, a certain number of successful completion is reached. So you see that if you want to run the job for 10 times, okay, so you want to just execute it 10 times and it will be done like that. So if you delete a job, what happens, it not only deletes the job object from the Kubernetes, but also it deletes the associated pods inside of the job because it is part of the pod template. Unlike services, right? If you create a service and then you map it to a deployment, there will be pod connected to that service. But if you delete a service, Kubernetes service, it doesn't delete the related pod because they are loosely coupled. This is tightly coupled because it is part of the same definition file, and it's a hierarchical definition. It's not the two separate YAML attached to one single file using 3-, which you can do. You can suspend a job, and by suspending job, it basically you can delete all the active pod until the job is resumed. So if you see in a job kind of scenario, it dynamically creates a pod with a name and some random number attached to it, just like deployment. If you go and delete those pods, the job will keep creating them as long as it needs that, right? Now, Kubernetes job creates a single job object, consistently run one pod to completion, right? So, and then if the node hardware failure happens, a node reboot happens, the job object will create a new pod if the initial pod fails or deleted, right? There could be an issue with not just job, but also the landing zone of this job where it is running, right? So you will find those challenges over here. Now, the Kubernetes job is also used to execute multiple pods at the same time, right? So what happens when you basically have this multiple pod running against the job, right? You say that get jobs, right? You will see the list of jobs. And then if you go inside the job, you'll find all the pods information. You can also run a job from a direct YAML file. So if you have a local YAML file, you can create a job from there. If you have a GitHub YAML file path, which is publicly accessible, you can also use it. Now, one of the things in this example it does is that it calculates the pi to 2000 places. So you can see that it uses the per image as a container under a template, right? So you have this job, and then you have a template, which basically runs a container, and then that's a Perl image, which does run this command, which basically does the print of pi up to 2000 print times, right? 2000 places, and then prints them. It takes around 10 seconds to complete. Once that is complete, job is over, right? So that's one time activity, right? So you can see that happening if you just run this command in your Kubernetes. If you say um, kubectl get pods -w, which is watch, right? So, and then it'll show you the progress of the pod is getting created, completed, and then it'll be deleted, right? So you will find all those life cycle of the pod happening because you have a job. Now, the cron job is created for repeating schedule, right? So you can say that I want to run a job daily once at 12 noon. Okay, that's the noon time, daily, one time I run once. So if you have those kind of things, so you should think about creating a cron job, right? It's a definition given, standard definition given. So you will see that the format where to put what, right? And then based on that, the schedule will be created and it will repeat on an interval basis. Now it basically is hierarchical in the sense like you first have a cron job and then you have a job and then you have a pod. So it internally uses the concept of jobs. So it doesn't do anything extra, but it adds some layer on top of existing job mechanism to do it on a regular interval. So that's what the cron job is doing. Quite an intelligent way to apply the same architecture with an abstraction, right? So you can So you can automate the task that happens on a regular basis. Maybe you are reading all the blogs from all your RSS feeds and then storing them into backend system. So if you have that kind of activity, so you can run it in a cron job, and then you can actually run, let's say, twice a day. You can also do a backup or send email. You can schedule a job for cluster when it is idle, right? So those are the things you can do. Now the cron job YAML file looks like this. What basically it does, it prints the current time on the machine and say hello message every minute. So you see that it basically runs a command, a bin sh, runs the command date echo hello from Kubernetes cluster. Simply, it will print something out of the busy box. So busy box is a minimal container. Now, this is where the schedule comes into play, right? And that says that it is per minute. The first place is for minute, second is for hour, third is for day of the month, and then the day of the week, right? So if you say /1 in the first place, it means every 1 minute. If you want to run it in every 30 minutes, you say /30, it'll run on every 30 minutes. So that's how you define that cron job. So you see here, that's a standard cron job definition, and cron job is something a standard in Linux world. So it is not something specific to Kubernetes, it is specific to Linux. So you see that first place is for minute, second is for hour, third is for month, day of the month, so it's going to be 1 or 31, any number in between. And the fourth one is the month, which is 1 or 12. January starts with 1, and then December is 12, and then the last one is the day of the week. But there's a confusion. The certain system supports 7 as a Sunday, so you need to check it out which works well or perfectly. So there is a test required to make sure that it is happening as expected on the specific interval mentioned by us. We talk about Kubernetes config maps. Now let's see a demo on Kubernetes job. Now this is what you see is a Kubernetes job template. And inside this job, the kind job, you find a container called busybox. And what this is doing, it is running a date command. So every time you start this, it'll just print the date and exit out of that. Now let's see how that experience looks like when you run this game. So let me go ahead and apply this. So I'll say apply -f job.yaml. A job is created. If you say get job, you find the my date job is available, which is already completed because Kubernetes container runs one process and then it comes out of that. Now let's see what all pods we have. We have a my job date job pod ran. So let me go ahead, copy, and say logs, and then do that. You can see that it printed this date when it ran this job, right? So if I go ahead and say, okay, delete job, my date, job, date, job, it's deleted. Now you don't find that Kubernetes pod running here. So if I say get pod, there'll be no pods because the job has created the pod. The moment you delete the job, the pod gets deleted. Let's see one more time. So if I apply this Kubernetes file to create a job, the job gets created. If I go ahead and see the pod, I see newly created pod. If I go ahead and say that I want to read the log, what happened within the pod, it'll show me the log from the pod, which is nothing but the date when it was started. Okay, so if I run this, you see the date. And that's all for the Kubernetes job demo. Thank you very much. Now let's see cron job. So as the name suggests, cron job is a job, but it runs on a regular interval. So if you see here, there is at the bottom of this YAML file, there is a schedule. And that essentially says that it will run on every 1 minute. Okay, so every 1 minute this job will run, and what this job will do, it'll basically run a container using the image busybox, and inside that container it'll type out a command that is date, and that essentially will print the current date and time within that job. So we can see how this job works literally in Kubernetes. So let us go into the Kubernetes window, go there, and inside that, what we can do now, we can actually execute this job by saying k apply -f and then cron. Same YAML file, the YAML file executed. Then to see the list of cron jobs, we can say cj. CJ is shorter form of cron job, so you can see that my cron job is just now created 6 seconds ago, and it also creates jobs. So I'd say k get job. We'll see a list of jobs available here in this right now. Nothing has been created. Okay, so let me just go ahead and get the pod. Yeah, job is created now, so it takes some time. So let's say now the pod should be created. Now you can see that 30 seconds ago the pod is created. So what has happened inside this pod? Let us just quickly check by using k logs and then the pod name. And you'll find the current date and time of that. And if you run this get pod again, you will find a newly created pod uh, after 1 minute of this. So once this 1 minute is over, you will see a new pod will be kick started because there'll be a new job, because this cron job is running for every 1 minute. So it will trigger in every 1 minute. And the first position of the cron job is minute, then hour. So you are running this on a per minute basis. So you can see that new job has been created. New pod is hence ready. So we'll pick it up, and then we will do again k logs and this pod name, which will give us a different time. So you can notice here it ran at 409. Now it ran at 410, exactly 1 minute after the first job ran. Just to see the list of jobs, you say k get job, you'll find the job. There are two jobs which is completed, basically ran by the cron jobs. So every minute there'll be a new job created, completed, and it'll be happening on a regular interval basis. That's what the cron job really means.